Good morning, everybody. A very warm welcome to you all. We started dot on 10 o'clock. Look at that. Everyone's keen and eager. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Sarah Irving. I'm Head of Business Engagement and Communications here at Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce. And we are running in partnership with City Fibre, the City Fibre Digital Academy, which is an initiative that's being supported by City Fibre and running across 9 different regions in the UK. And we're working with many of our fellow chambers across the southeast for the City Fibre Digital Academy, which is putting on a variety of AI and technology-based webinars and face-to-face events covering those all-important issues. And we're absolutely delighted this morning to be joined by one of our fabulous members. I mean, all our members are fabulous, but in particular, we're joined by the lovely Rolf Woodward, who is going to be talking to us today about brand vulnerability and what the world sees when they look at your domain name. The chat box is open throughout the webinar, so if you do have any questions, we can tackle those at the end. And the session is being recorded and we'll get that out later on today, so you can re-watch if you miss anything. But without further ado, over to you, Rolf.
Thank you. Good morning. So I'm actually going to start with a question. The question is how would you feel if you found someone using your brand out in the world for purposes that you didn't know? Now think about this when we're going through this thing. So who am I? I actually started out in a very different career than IT. I was a professional mountain bike coach. I then moved more into sort of sports management, working in the Olympics, and then finalising my sort of sports career, I guess, as part of the management team of the London 2012 Olympic Park. Anyone who knows sport knows it's a very transient lifestyle. And unfortunately, it's quite hard to stay in there, particularly as you get a family. So I kind of transitioned more into technology. I'd been doing sort of technology implementations and things in my off seasons, but that's where how I got into IT more. I started out very much as a general IT person, but over the years, I actually discovered that I enjoyed working with Apple technology a bit more. Apple is a difference in how you do IT. You have to think different. This is one of their slogans. And we are one of their technical partners now, because over time we have developed a great understanding of how to use their devices within a business environment. So what does this all have to do about security? Well, as I say, in the sports world, it's very much about brand. You know, teams want to protect their brands. So over the years, I've learned a lot about brand protection. And with that, I've then moved into applying that with IT. Now, what is the first thing that most companies will do when they set up? They will buy a domain name. That is your brand on the internet. It's the first thing that most people will register, probably before they even register in Companies House. But what is a domain name? It's not just an email address. It's not just a website address. A domain name has actually got a lot to it these days. It is basically a signpost for the world. It tells the world where your website is, where your email servers are. It can also be connected to your identity provider. So if you're using things like Office 365 or Google Workspace for your company, you might be using your email addresses as an identity. That is all connected to your domain name. So a domain name is actually something that was invented because underneath it is a lot more complex string of numbers called IP addresses. And if you were to give those numbers to someone to say, this is how you get to my website, most people would probably look at you very blank and never remember it. So it was developed to basically put a human, easy readable aspect to those IP addresses. Now, when you look at a domain name, so in this case, I'm actually looking at McDonald's. It's broken into multiple records, as we will say. You have A records, which are all about the websites. You have MX records, which are all about your email. And then there's the ones which I actually spend quite a lot of time looking at with businesses, which are connected with the TX records. These records are publicly available, but can give you quite a lot of information about a company. They can tell you whether someone's using Google services or Outlook. They can tell you what security programs they're using, whether they've got email security. They can tell you if they've got Apple Business Manager. They can also tell you if they've got Google reviews, Facebook reviews, all of these sort of things. So these TX records tell you a lot about a company. Now, why is this important? Well, a couple of years ago, you might have heard a lot of announcements about a standard called DMARC. Now, DMARC was developed back in about 2012 to fix a flaw that's been around since the inception of email. That flaw was basically that if anyone could use your domain name to send an email, basically pretending to be you, and it would be delivered. So it's this flaw, as I say, is not a complex one, but it is being used quite a lot these days for spoof emails. So you might see, or you probably have heard of people who have received invoices, and those have actually come from someone else who is basically using your domain name and sending fake invoices on to represent you. So I encourage people, if you want to have a go to this address and check your domain safety rating. This will tell me how easy is it to actually use your company's domain name to send spoof emails. I'll give you a second. Okay. So that when you fill in your email address in that form, you will get a rating back. And the ratings on this tool basically are designed to give you an idea of how easy it is to use your domain name to send spoof email addresses or spoof emails. Ideally, you want 5 out of 5 because then you are fully protected. It means that you have full visibility of what someone is doing with your domain name out in the wild. Now, as you can see from this result, and basically this is McDonald's domain score, and they've got a 3 out of 5 because they haven't actually got DMARC set up, which is quite incredible because for such a big brand, it means that you can actually send an email pretending to be from McDonald's to anyone in the world and it will be delivered. Not very good. So as I was saying, this flaw has been around for a while, and it was only in the last couple of years that it came to attention to people because Google basically started to say that if you were a mass sender and you didn't have DMARC in place, they were going to start to block your emails. And then subsequently, we've had Microsoft, we've had Yahoo, and all the big email providers are starting to have a DMARC policy. Now, they talk about mass senders, so most people will say, well, I'm exempt. But there's a caveat to that, because if your email ever gets used or compromised and there's a phishing campaign sent using your domain name, you will become a mass mail server because they will send above those limits. And then going forwards, your domain will always be labeled as a mass sender within the big providers. So it's something that you do have to keep an eye on. Now, phishing is also the start of most attacks these days. Email is still very prominent in business workspace. And it's the easiest way to get a link or something in front of someone. And because everyone is busy these days, a lot of people will not necessarily question those emails properly. If you want to have a go at spoofing yourself, this link basically will allow you to basically do an impersonation of your own domain name. So it's a good test to see if you can actually send an email from your company domain to your personal email. And so you can see how easy it is to do these spoofing attacks. I'll give everyone a second to do that. And this is a practice, well, this is a spoof email that I sent myself from Ronald McDonald at McDonald's, and it came through. So I sent myself an invoice using this tool, and that's what was delivered. So if you're getting fake invoices sent to you, this is how they're doing it. Okay. And I was saying, so this is because the McDonald's brand has only got P equals none. So yes, some people say, well, I've got DMARC installed. But they haven't actually got a policy in there that says that if it doesn't come from a list of the servers that I know are authorized to send on behalf of my email address, you should block it or you should quarantine it. Now, when you look at this list, the SPF, this is basically the list of authorized servers that they are using to basically send emails on behalf of this domain name. Now, again, this is all publicly available records. You can use some simple tools and it will tell you all of this information. So I know from this that they've got Outlook as their email service, main email service. I can see they're using Amazon. I can see they also use MailJet, which is a mailing email platform. So it's giving me lots of information about the tools that this McDonald's are using when they're sending out emails in the world. Okay. So why is that important? Well, that's giving me the intelligence that if I want to then say, right, I want to try and attack their Outlook. So how am I going to do this? They're going to use basically adversary in the middle attack, which it often starts with a phishing email. And as I'm going to show you next, can also, in a lot of circumstances, bypass that MFA that most people have set up. Now, Microsoft have been encouraging people to use Microsoft Authenticator to set up those, which I definitely advise all companies should have in place, but it doesn't mean you are actually 100% risk-free of being attacked, because unfortunately, there is something out there now which you can download off the GitHub, which is just a code repository called EvilGenix, which will basically simulate or will produce exact login pages for Microsoft 365. So what the attackers are doing is they will send you a spoof email saying that you need to reset your password. this is actually pointing to an Evilgenics server. When you click that link, it looks just like a Microsoft login. You fill in your password, you fill in your credentials. It glitches for a second, which is not uncommon with Microsoft's logins, and it will then log you into Microsoft. But in the background of it, what the attackers are doing is they're capturing something called a session cookie. Now, a session cookie is something that allows them to log into your Microsoft 365 without needing the MFA. So I have a very, see if this runs. This is an example of basically Evilgenics running. So as you'll see up in the top there, they've clicked on a link which takes them to not even a Microsoft login site, but the login looks just like Microsoft. They're filling in their email address like you would do normally. Entering their password just like you would normally in Microsoft. As you see on the right, they got an approval. Now, what they've switched to here is the Evilgenics platform, which is showing the captured password, the username, captured password, taking a while. Let's speed it up. Okay, so the person has approved it using their authenticator app, or is approving it using their authenticator app. So everything looks normal here. And they're into their Microsoft 365. But in the bottom there of Evilgenics, the attacker now has this session cookie. So what can they do with that session cookie? Well, they then will copy that session cookie and input, let's just speed it up a tiny bit. They will open up their own web browser, copy their session cookie, which they have captured, and they will inject it into their browser using, again, freely available tools on the internet. Refresh their browser, and they're into your Microsoft tenant and your email account, just like that. And that was all because someone basically clicked a link in a spoof email address. Okay, so scary, something to think about. The big question there is, how do you protect against these sort of attacks? The email spoofing side of things, it all comes down to this standard called DMARC. And you really need to get your business to P equals reject. Now, why is that important? Because that means you've gone through the steps of actually analyzing your domain name, identifying the servers that send on behalf of your domain name, making sure those are all properly configured. Once those are properly configured, you are then telling the world that basically, if it doesn't come from these list of servers, then it didn't come from us. And that's the important thing. It's about making sure that the world knows that these are authorized. This is you on the internet, and anything else is not. Okay? So when I see people who say, well, we've got DMARC and they've got P equals none, you're not protecting yourself. You're just opening yourself up to basically the ability to someone spoof. DMARC, using a proper DMARC provider is also important because it gives you intelligence. It tells you if someone is trying to use your company domain names, your brand, so that if you suddenly get, I don't know, 2,000 emails attempting to send from the other side of the world from where you operate from, it means that someone is trying something with your domains. And so then it's also an indicator that, right, we better just check that all our other security is in place. Just check that there isn't anything suspicious going on inside of our infrastructure, networks, devices. So it just gives you that a bit more warning about something which is quite invisible to most people. Now, the evil Genix is a bit more of a tricky one, I guess, because Microsoft has obviously spent a lot of time telling people that you need to have two-factor authenticator, use the Microsoft Authenticator app, and that's definitely is true. If you haven't got two-factor authentication on all of your logins, you should, as a minimum. But you still have to be careful of these links that basically will simulate Microsoft logins. Now, Evil Genix as a platform actually has login pages that you can pretend to do a Facebook login, a Google Workspace login. There's a whole catalog of logins within the application. So it's not just Microsoft I'm picking on here. You just have to be careful about, when you're putting your details into these forms, is it actually from the website that you are intending to visit? One of our suppliers actually has a solution which they call MFA 2.0, and it pretty much closes down Evil Genix's issues. It is using something called passkeys technology. Passkeys technology is the future of security of passwords, I guess you could say, in the world. A lot of companies or websites are being a bit slow to update to using passkeys. But basically what passkeys is it's a kind of token that sits on your device. And instead of having a password, it's authenticating that you are who you are. So it's a lot harder to basically hack. The IDE by Authn, that is something that can be applied within a couple of minutes to people's Microsoft tenants and uses this sort of technology so that you don't have to worry about that MFA bypass of your Office 365, Google Workspace. It's an incredibly simple product, but really effective at closing this down. What else do we need to think about? Password managers. I'm sure you've probably heard a lot of people talk about using password managers, not reusing passwords, but actually it's such a critical thing these days because there are so many leaked databases of passwords out there. So if you're reusing passwords, the first thing I will try is if I was to look at your domain name, see that you're using Office 365, is try and log in with an email and a compromised password to see if it lets me in. So you really need to basically start using different passwords for each sign-in that you have. Phishing training, cybersecurity training, very similar, but basically, it's important to start to educate your end users, question links, look at the URL, so the web address at the top. Does it look like it comes from Microsoft, or is it some completely random email address? Now, the attackers have got wise to this one as well, because what they're trying to do now is they're trying to register lookalike domains which have one character different than Microsoft. So instead of a I, it's an L. So again, it's getting trickier to sort of identify these things because they are getting clever with this. But the training is out there to encourage or to educate your staff to start questioning these things, because they are the last line of defense. We can put all this technology in place, but it's the end users that really are our final piece of defense, and they need to question about things and not just click links and really look at what's going on. These organizations run some great training. If you're in the Southeast, the cyber resilience centers, they do some great desktop exercises when they will come into your organization and work with your thing. I highly recommend sort of signing up to their stuff. Cyber Essentials is also is good. It puts you it at least puts you into a posture where you know that people and your devices are starting to do the right things. But unfortunately, with cybersecurity and all of these things these days, it's a constant thing that you have to keep doing. It's not just, oh, we've done it, tick the box, that's it. It's constantly learning because the threats keep changing, and that's what we have to keep up with on a daily basis. Okay. And if anyone's got any questions, please fire away.
Thank you so much. I was there busy with my phone doing all the QR codes, so thank you. I know we've spoken about this before. One question was the passcode technology that you spoke about. With everybody, with every organisation, large or small, but particularly our SMEs and micro businesses across the Thames Valley, cost is always going to be at the forefront of everyone's minds with everything. Is there what kind of costs involved with that?
So the IDE is actually it's only like £1.50-ish per user. So we're not talking a lot to implement it. It's a very easy technology to implement. The pass keys, those are more about if you're using websites to log in, say Zero and all these things, and you see a pop-up saying, do you want to basically use pass keys? Encourage people to use those in replace of their passwords. Okay. Now, the challenge with those with pass keys is they are saved to the device. So if you're using a Mac, it would save it into what's known as the keychain. On Windows, it will save it into their sort of TPM, which is their security thing. But it does mean that also logins that if, say, on a Mac who has a Touch ID, a lot of websites you can basically go to, put your finger on the Touch ID and it will log you in. So you don't have to actually type in a password. In the Apple world, we also have things called managed Apple IDs, which again is something I encourage businesses to do because those can be what we call federated. So they use the same credentials as, say, your Google Workspace or your Microsoft. Mm-hmm. And when you set those up, it basically, particularly in the Apple world, it means that you have an Apple account which is a business focus. So you're starting to save business stuff into a business profile. So you don't get that murky water of people's credentials might go home with them on their devices. Yeah. You've got a lot more sort of control over those. Happy to talk to anyone about that sort of side of things if they want to know about it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I mean, that was an incredible one. We kept right on the half an hour. Look at that. We're timing beautifully as well. As Rolf does this, please do reach out to him. You will see that, he's got a wealth of information there that's really helpful to your organisation. regardless of size or sector or whereabouts you are. So do reach out. And that just remains me to say thank you so much. Great to see you. We'll see you at one of our events soon. And to everyone else, enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.